Hello friends and welcome to my channel Iballdesigningdeveloper. So like you all know that previously we have covered up a video on vector, like in C++ we have learned that what is vector, how to work on that, and I hope you enjoy that video. So in this video we will be working on list, like what is list in C++, how to make a list in C++, or you can say how to add list in C++ as well, because already we have worked on list in HTML, CSS as well, and then we have also worked it on Python and all other languages. So I hope you enjoyed all the things about list which we have covered up in the other languages video. So in this video we will be learning about list in C++, that how to add list here. So if you understand this video and if you enjoy this amazing tutorial here, so remember to hit a like to this video, and if you're new on this channel, want to see more videos like that, so remember to subscribe, and after subscribing hit notification bell so you can get the notifications of all my coming up videos which I'll be uploading in future. So now what we are waiting for, let's move to computer screen and let's get started. So now here we are on the computer screen, and like I've told you in the start that today in this video I will be telling you about list, like what is list in C++, how you can start with it. So if we talk about list in C++, so basically a list is similar to a vector in that it can store multiple elements of the same type and dynamically grow in size. However, two major differences between list and vectors are you can add and remove elements from both the beginning and at the end of a list, while vectors are generally optimized for adding and removing at the end. Unlike vectors, a list does not support random access, meaning you cannot directly jump into a specific index or access elements by index numbers. To use a list, you have to include the list header file, include the list library by using this hashtag include list. So this is the way like what is list. In this paragraph we have understand what is list, how to include a list library in C++. Normally if we talk about list, so basically list is similar to vector and it can store multiple elements of the same type, and it can also dynamically grow in size, which is the similarity between vector and list. But if we talk about what are the difference between them, so if in the summary you can add and remove different elements in the beginning and starting of the you can say in the beginning and the end of the list, while vector cannot add any element. You can generally just optimize vector for adding and removing at the end. And if we talk about vector, so vector does not support any list or random access here, means like in vector we can access elements, but in list you cannot access any random element here. You have to include like manually things, then you can directly jump into a specific index. But normally like in vector we access a element easily, you cannot do that in list. So that's the difference between them. If we talk about that how we can create a list, to create a list we have to use list keyword and we have to specify the type of values it should store within angle brackets, and then we have to write the name of the list here. It can be list type list name. So this is the list name which we have written. Like down, if I show you in the example, again we have used the same list name as cars like we were using in vector, the same vector name as cars. So here also we have used the same vector name as cars, but you can use different type as well. If you want to create a string, you can use a string. If you want to create an integer, you can use an integer. You can use any of type here you want, but I am using a string again because in a string I can store multiple values, that's why. Then I have also used the keyword as list, because obviously if I'm creating a list I need to use the keyword as list here. And then it is saying me that if you want to add elements at the time of declaration, place them in a comma separated list inside curly braces like we were doing in vectors as well. If I see the example here, so again in example we have added one list keyword, then a type called string, and after that we have given our list name as cars, in which we have added different strings. So these are the string which I have added in my list of cars. And then if I want to print this list element, so for that I will be using for loop, and in for loop I'll be defining the type, which is the string, because I'm using string values here. That's why I will be writing the type as a string, and after that I will be giving my list name. So my list name is cars, so that's why I'll be writing cars here. And then in curly braces I will be writing count and cars, so that I can print my list element here and I can get the output. And in note it is written the type of the list string in our example cannot be changed after it's been declared. Like in vector the same thing was, like if you have declared the type of list string, so it cannot be changed after it's been declared, and that's the thing in C++ and in list as well. If we talk about that how we can access a list, so it is saying me that you cannot access list elements by referring to index numbers like we were doing in vectors. So the difference between list and vector is that normally you cannot access a list here, but in vector you can easily access the list by referring the index number, but in list you cannot do that. You have to just write here like with arrays and vectors we can do that, but in list you cannot do. However, you can access the first or last element with the dot front and dot back functions respectively. Like we were using dot front and dot back functions in vectors, and in vectors we can easily access the element by referring the index, but in normally list we cannot do that. We can only access the first and last element with the dot front and dot back functions which we are using respectively, and that's the difference between them. So if we talk about that how we can create a list, so for creating a list normally we have to use again list keyword, then the type, and after that I'll be using the name of my list as cars, and here I will be defining the values which I have to use. Like I've defined all my string values which I will be using here, and after that we need to use the first element of dot cars which I have to print is Volvo, which will be the first element here. And then if we talk about the second element which will be dot back, it will be as Mazda. So that's why these two things will be printed, the front element Volvo and the back element which is Mazda, it will be printed, and these two car types will be having the output here. Now if we see how to change a list element, so for changing list element you have to change the value of the first or the last element with the dot front and dot back function. So from that you can change the list element here. Then how to add a list element, we have to use the same method to add a list element like we were using in vector by using dot push front and dot push back functions here. Then if you want to remove any list element you have to use dot pop front and dot pop back functions. And how to manage a list size, you can use dot size function like we were using in vector. Then if we check a list is empty, so for that we will be using dot empty function to just empty any list or to get an empty list in the output. And if you want to loop through a list, you can use these for loops here. You can use different loops, but for loop is a main example which you can use to loop through any list here. Then this is the simplest way through a list, which is called for each loop. For each loop is the simplest way to loop through a list here, and you can use different other loops as well, which is for loop, and normally you can use if loop as well. So just you can do that to work with list. So I hope you understand how we are working with list here, but before that we are working with these things. We need to add these things here. So for adding, I'll be doing one thing. I'll be copying all the things which we have understand here in list like we were doing in vectors as well, but both things is having a difference between them, so we need to have difference between all those things which we have learned here. So I'll be now copying this thing here which we have seen in the example of list, and now I will be moving on to my Google Chrome, and then here I will be changing the title to list, and then I will be now pressing enter. And after doing that, you can just see we will be getting all the things here. So I will be now include IOStream here, and after that I will be including header file of list. So for that I will be adding include list like this, and then I will be moving down and I will be writing here using namespace std, and then I will be now adding the thing which is called init main, in which I will be adding all the things here, which is create a list called cars, and it will store string values which are these strings. You can also put any the string value of fruits, you can put the string values of vegetables, you can put any of the string values you want, but I am storing the string values of cars. Now what I'm going to do is I'll be returning the value as well here, which will be as 0, so that I can get all the things printed. Now if I just save this thing here and if I just run this thing, so now you will be getting an output printed all these values here. So if I run it here, you can just see we are getting all the car values printed, and I hope you understand how we are getting it. Now what I'm going to do is I'll be moving on to my Word document again, and I will be now just moving at the top here. So if I just show you, you can just see we have understand how to access a list. We will be just moving down, and to access a list we will be using same thing here. So I will be now just copying this thing here now, and I will be pasting it here so that we can understand if you want to access a list, so how you can do that. And I will be just pasting in place of these things here. So after pasting these things, if I just print this, so the first output you will be getting will be Volvo, because we are printing dot front value here, and when you are working with list, so you cannot write the number values to print the output of any string. Normally in list you have to just write dot front and dot back functions to print the first value and the last value of your string. So the first value in our string is Volvo, so you will be getting Volvo, and then the back value means the last value in our string is Mazda, so that's why the last value you will be getting printed as Mazda. So if I run it here, after running you can just see we are getting two values, which is Volvo and Mazda, but I will be giving one line space after that, so I'll be writing endl here so that I can give a space. Then here as well I will be doing same thing, I'll be writing endl. Now after writing, I will be saving this, and if I run it again, so you can just see now we are getting one line space after that, which is Volvo, and after one line space we are getting Mazda. So like this you can just use these things, and I hope you understand how we are using list, how we are creating a list, and how we are accessing list in C++. So I hope you understand how we are working with list in C++, how we have included the header file of C++. So if you have understand this video, and if you have enjoyed that how we have worked with list, how we have added the list header file here, so remember to hit a like to this video. And if you're new on this channel, want to see more videos like that, so remember to subscribe, and after subscribing, hit notification bell as well, so you can get the notifications of all my coming up videos which I'll be uploading in future. So now I'll be meeting you next project or in next tutorial video in future. So for today, good bye.